Hello, everybody. I'm Sally with OwlCrate Jr., and I'm here today with Holly Goldberg Sloan, who is the author of our March book, The Elephant in the Room. We've just spent the last couple minutes just chatting and saying hellos and stuff, but I have a whole list of questions for Holly about her and about her wonderful book. So anyone watching, you are welcome to chat amongst yourselves in the chat. If you have any questions for Holly, you can pop those into the Q&A at the bottom, and we will make sure to save some time at the end to ask your viewer questions. But without further ado, welcome, Holly. Thank you for joining us.
I'm going to start by saying it was such a thrill to be chosen as an OwlCrate Jr. book. I was unprepared for how excited I would be by the whole thing. And I was really unprepared when the box actually arrived, because I knew sort of what was going to be in it. They had told me. But when I saw all things, I all of a sudden was back in junior high or wherever I was. The greatest thing could happen to me, which would be that someone would give me a book, but no one ever gave me a pen and an eraser and a note. And I found the whole thing so thrilling. Anyway, it's a big honor for me to have been chosen, and I'm happy to know that. So,
thank you. That's just thrilling to hear. It was our pleasure to include the book in the box. It was so great. So speaking of which, we always love to start these chats with having you tell us a little bit, like a recap of what this book is about.
Okay, so the elephant in the room, I'm gonna hold it because I'm used to doing this now. Normally when I release a book, I travel all around the country, sometimes all around the world. I've been to Dubai, I've been all over England, because my books are in many different languages. So I'm used to getting on planes, and then I show up in a school, and now I show up on a screen. But so that's what everybody has been doing this past year. And I find it ironic that I started this book 5 years ago. And when I started it, I had this line sort of bouncing around my head: feelings travel when people can't. At that point, however, people could travel. So it didn't seem, now in this specific case, there are some people who can't travel, but I released the book on March 2nd. It's the March book for OwlCrate Jr. And we're not traveling. So I feel a little bit like a fortune teller. I feel a little bit as if I somehow got out ahead of the curve of something, which is the feeling you have when you're separated from people you care about. And really, that's what the book is about. The book is fundamentally, I think, about the power of friendship. It's about how friends and friendship can get us through difficult situations. Of course, friendship's even more difficult when you can't see the friend, but there are things you can do. We're doing it today where you can connect with people. And the book is about the power of connection. So when I start writing, I always start with the main character. I have a person I want to write about, and I give them a problem. That's the jumping off point for me. I wrote a book called Counting by Sevens that a lot of people know this book. Yes. And with this book, I started with the character of someone that was a gifted student. And that was because I have two sons. And when my oldest son was 7 years old, he took a test at the public school and he got a perfect score in math. And they had him take it again, and he got another perfect score. And then they called me and said he needs to leave the classroom. He was in 2nd grade. They want him to go to 5th grade. I was really excited about that, kind of a braggy mom. And so when he came home, said, hey, guess what? You're gonna go to 5th grade. He couldn't stop crying. And he told me he was afraid of 3rd graders. So like, this was the worst that ever happened to him. And he said, here's what I want to do. I want to take the test again, and I'm gonna miss every 4th question. So he was even thinking about the math test from a mathematic point of view. He wasn't gonna randomly miss some. He was just gonna count 1, 2, 3, 4. So I started with a character. I made the character a girl, and I started with, what does it mean when you're different? And sometimes things that make you different, they're a blessing, but they're also a curse. They're a burden that you have to carry around. So in this book, I start with a girl who's Turkish American. So she was born in the United States, in Oregon. I tell everyone I'm from Oregon, but I've lived many places. I love the Pacific Northwest. So it's easy for me to say that. But the truth is, I went to high school in Istanbul, Turkey. My father is a professor and he worked for the Peace Corps. He teaches, he's a social scientist, and what he studies is how to test people and differences. So if you in my work, I very often feature tests. One of my earliest memories is my father putting me in front of a fire and timing, like I'm sitting in front of the fire in the house, I'm really little, and he was timing how long it took for me to be hot. Like everything had a quantitative issue that he wanted to do. Well, so in this book, immigration is certainly a big topic of our time. It's one of the most talked about and most important things that we can think about. All of us, almost all of us, are immigrants. It's just a question of when we arrived. So this girl, she was born in America, but her parents weren't. And her mother has a problem with her paperwork and gets sent back to Turkey. And she's supposed to, and I'm not wrecking anything because this is right at the beginning of the book.
Right at the beginning, yeah.
She's supposed to be gone 8 days. And when the book really starts, she's been gone 8 months. And I remember my husband and I, when COVID first became a reality, they told us that in April, so this is April of 2020, that we probably wouldn't be able to go to restaurants, the place things we wouldn't do. And I remember us sitting down and looking at each other and going, wow, 4 weeks, really? And now it's a year later, we still haven't gone to a restaurant. But anyway, time has this way of expanding and contracting. And when you miss someone, time can be the longest thing there is. So I start with a little girl. I give her a problem. Problem is that there's immigration problem in their family. She's missing her mother. And what happens when you have a big problem? How do you react to that? What do you do? And in the case of this girl, she retreats. She really stops being with her friends. She goes home all the time after school. She's waiting for her mom to come back. So she just feels that if she pays attention to it, that might get her sooner back to Oregon. But of course, that's not true. That's kind of magical thinking. You can't make something happen in that way. But in the course of telling the story, she meets an older man, sort of a grandfatherly man, and he has some issues as well. He has some loss and some longing, and he doesn't feel that he has purpose, and he's won the lottery. So that gives him actually some resources. And I'm not going to say much more about that, but the book involves an elephant. It involves a boy named Matteo who goes to school with Scylla. And it tells the story as a journey. What happens to them really in the course of a long summer. And then they go back to school. So I started in that way. And now I'm looking at my books. I wrote a book called Short, and I started that book with the idea, it was autobiographical. My mother insisted that I audition to be in a play one summer, the summer after 5th grade. And you had to go to the university and you had to sing and dance. And I don't sing and dance. And I was short. I was 2 years younger. I looked 2 years younger. In every school picture, I look like the pet. I'm down in the front. Everyone's around me. I kind of got used to it. And I think my mom wanted me to have a big voice because I think she thought my grandmother's was not even 5 feet tall. So, but here's the irony. In 7th grade, I grew 7 inches in 7 months.
Oh my gosh.
Not short. I'm actually tall. And when it happened, I wasn't even happy because I had an identity. My identity was the littlest kid. And then all of a sudden I wasn't. But I ended up being in a play that summer. I was a munchkin in The Wizard of Oz. And so I wrote about that. Should we talk some more about the elephant in the room and elephants and what I love about them?
Please.
Well, I am, besides being a novelist, I am a screenwriter and I'm a film director. I wrote a movie called Angels in the Outfield, which is a baseball movie. And I wrote and I directed a movie called The Big Green, which is the first live action movie that a woman directed for the Walt Disney Company. I really love animals. I love sports. So I end up writing stories about animals and sports and kids. And then I wrote a movie called Made in America. I wrote a Hallmark Hall of Fame movie. So I've written all these movies. And I think my books have a feeling as if they are movies because that's how I was trained.
Really do. Yeah.
Yeah, I was trained that you need to keep it going. So I often, when someone reads my book, they say, well, I started and I thought I was going to only read for about, I don't know, 20 minutes. And then I just read the whole thing because they can't
I can attest to that.
So I do hope I make a movie out of this. But one of the, well, two different movies I worked on, one was called Mighty Joe Young. I don't have credit, but I went to Africa and I saw the Highland gorillas. I was doing all this research for it, and I did some of the first drafts of that movie. And then I worked on a movie called Whispers with two filmmakers named Derek and Beverly Jobert, and they are two of the most important documentary filmmakers in the world. And I worked with them at the Walt Disney Company, where they shot footage of elephants and we cut it together to try to tell a story. So I have seen hundreds of hours of footage that was shot by really amazing documentary filmmakers. And so that meant that I knew a lot about elephants. And then the crazy thing is I wrote the Crocodile Hunter movie with Steve Irwin.
Okay.
Steve is no longer alive. He died a stingray. He was swimming too close to a stingray. But his daughter's named Bindi. She won Dancing with the Stars. A lot of people, she just had a baby. A lot of people know her from that. And so I went to Australia and I lived at the zoo while I worked on the movie with them. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't know if Steve ever knew this. Maybe he did. I don't really like snakes and lizards as much as I like the more cuddly animals. But because MGM hired me and I knew that his heart and soul was in reptiles, well, I pretended my heart and soul was in reptiles too. And so then I wrote the movie. We made the movie. It was a wonderful experience. At the premiere of the movie, they sent me out onto the red carpet and I was following Steve Irwin and Terry Irwin and Bindi, and they were on an elephant. See these elephants, they keep coming back into my life. They were in on an elephant. It was at the ArcLight Cinema. And afterwards there was a really big party in this parking lot, and they took the parking lot and they converted it into a zoo. So they rode in and I'm gonna walk behind them. I'm gonna walk behind the elephant. And what happens is that the publicity person from MGM said, well, you look sort of boring. I mean, you're just walking in your green and white dress. They're on an elephant. Do you want to hold a baby alligator? Well, no, I don't want an alligator. I don't even like them, but I've been pretending for months that I love them. And I see Steve, he turns around, he's on the elephant. I see him and I see him go, good day, mate, great. So they hand me a baby alligator. And they tell me like, pinch it in the front legs, pinch it in the back, like pinch like that, and just walk with it. Well, you know, I could do that. I have on my nice dress. I've been to hair and makeup. I'm just going to walk out. And there are all these photographers. So they're going to take my picture. It's called the Crocodile Hunter movie. They don't alligator because alligators are in North America, but they don't put a little string around his nose and they don't tape his nose, which if you go to Florida and you go to an alligator park or farm, they keep that mouth shut.
Elastic or something there. Yeah.
Yeah. They have a little thing. Usually it's a very thin piece of wire, but anyway, nothing there. Okay, so I'm walking, I'm trying to smile, I'm trying to look cute, I'm walking, and then I get right to where the people are, but I'm afraid of his tail. I'm gonna tell you why I'm afraid of its tail. All the power comes from the tail. I have a lot of time with these things. They only move their arms like this, like their arms are going like this, but the tail, that's the weapon. So I've seen someone be slapped in the face with a tail. I'm super excited, you know, that I might get slapped in the face with the tail. So I'm walking, and right when we get to the place, I turn it because I'm not going to get slapped in the face with the tail. I turn it and I'm like this. Now, I want you to think about what it felt like to be the little alligator, because stories are points of view. So that was my point of view. I had to walk out there. I had to smile. I had to hold this thing that I didn't want to hold. And now imagine the point of view of him, this giant picks him up, squeezes him under his arm. And then the giant turns. And then the giant, I've got him like this, trying to smile. And this man from the Hollywood Reporter, that's a newspaper, he calls out, "Oh my gosh, it's so cute. Make it look like you're going to kiss it." So, it's show business, of course. Yeah, I can do that. So I'm holding it. And then I lean forward like this. I'm going to kiss it. Now, imagine what he thinks. He can only think I'm going to eat him. So jumped onto my face. He bit me in the nose. And then he tried to do what's called the death roll. He tried to flip me over.
Oh my God.
I got 16 holes in my nose. If you want, you can go online and you can Google Holly Goldberg Sloan, crocodile bite, alligator bite. You'll see, because the moment he did it and the moment he tried to flip me, they all took the picture. So then someone ran in, pulled him off my face, which they probably shouldn't have done. But anyway, I did still have my nose. I thought I didn't have my nose. And then blood starts coming out. So there's some actually nice, interesting pictures of me with like blood running down my face. They had an ambulance there. I'm always a trooper. So I went to the ambulance bleeding, and they put ice packs on me. And then I went back to the party because I didn't want to miss the premiere of my movie. So I went back to the party. I have on my dress. It's got blood all over it. And the head of MGM, when I walk in, says, "Hey, did you hear what happened? Some kid got bit." And I was like, "Some kid? No, me. I got bit." So that night on Fox News, it says a lot about Fox News. I was on Fox News. There's a picture of the bite being flipped, and they did a live interview. So tell us, you look like you're in pain. Okay, when something like that happens, you get bit by a wild animal. My mouth made a perfect O. I go, when bad things happen like that, you go, oh. So that's the look on my face.
Yeah.
So I did go to the hospital afterwards. And here's the interesting thing about the hospital. When I got there, they brought me in from the ambulance and they said, "Okay, we have to look at your tetanus shots, a lot of stuff we have to do. You could get an infection because of the spit of his mouth on your nose." And, but they go, "But before we do anything, we need to record you in our bite book." And they went and they got a book, and the book has every bite that's ever come in to the ER.
Okay.
And there are many bites. There are snakes and raccoons and dogs and cats and all that. I was the first alligator bite. So
Congratulations.
yeah, I feel good about that. Okay, so I do make a connection to the animals, and they make a connection to me. That's all I'm going to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure you have many, many more stories about Hollywood that I would love to talk to you about, but let's turn back to the elephant in the room.
Okay, let's go back
for at least a bit. So you touched a little bit on the fact that immigration is obviously a huge issue right now, all over the world.
Yes.
The title of the book is based on an expression that means like avoiding something that's right in front of you.
Yes.
How did you settle on that for the title of this book?
Well, very often when you start writing, you have one title in mind, and by the time the book is done, you have a different title. So that wasn't my original title. And as I continued to write the book, it seemed that the central topic, which is separation, what happens when we're apart, was something that was not being talked about enough. And the expression, the elephant in the room, is the thing we can all see. If there's an elephant in this room, it's the obvious thing. It's the thing we're all see, but we're not acknowledging it. We're not talking about it. So I like titles that have more than one meaning. I like titles that ask you to think about what the meaning is, to think about what I'm trying to say. And of course, that's up to you. The great thing about books, unlike say a movie, when I do a movie, I get to cast it and pick out the outfits and the locations, and so I'm doing that for you. But in the case of a book, it's on you guys. Mm-hmm. You guys imagine what she looks like. You imagine what Gio looks like, the older man. I give you some clues. Now, when we did the cover, I really love the cover of the book. And this is a farmhouse where he lives. And when I first got the cover, it was only one story. And I said, well, wait a second, did you read the book? Because it's 2 stories. That's important to me. And they were, oh gosh, she's really paying attention. Birds. And there are flamingos in the book, and there's a bear in the book.
That's right.
Besides doing film, television, I also direct TV commercials. And so I worked on a commercial with a bear.
Okay.
And it was the most important, or I wouldn't say important. He was the Laurence Olivier of bears, the Tom Cruise of bears. He's the most famous bear. His name was Bart. And it's a grizzly bear, 9 feet tall. And Bart has many, many credits, but in this case, it was a Bayer aspirin commercial that I did with Bart. And so I could see that Bart was very trainable. You could train him to do things. He was motivated by food. But there's a lot of stuff Bart wouldn't really do. He would start to do it, and he might change his mind. He might look out and see a butterfly and forget that the guy's got the clicker going, over here, Bart, look over here. Here's your eye, Bart. And they had chicken necks. So that was very motivating for him. In order to be able to train an animal, they must be interested in food. So I have 2 dogs, and one of them, we can't get this dog to do anything. This dog won't even come when they're both rescued. This dog won't even come when you call the dog. And so finally, I tried to figure out what kind of dog she was. And just last week, I think I figured it out. And I think she's mostly Basenji. And I went online and I looked, and it says, Basenjis are the least trainable dog of the dog world.
Oh my gosh.
There's one other dog that's not trainable, it's an Afghan hound. But so now I realize it's okay.
Oh, okay.
You went away. You went away.
What just happened? I'm so sorry. My window just shut on me. Can you hear me and see me?
No, we can hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Can you hear
I'm
me?
back. I'm so
Okay.
sorry about that. We seem to still be recording.
Okay.
What just happened?
knows
I'm
what
back.
that was?
Sorry, everybody.
Has that ever happened before?
Dog.
Holly, has that happened before?
Say that again.
Has that ever happened before to you?
That has never happened to me before with Zoom. I don't know what just happened, but it
Okay.
seems to be fine now.
Okay, good. Maybe you just have kind of jittery internet. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't. Anyways,
I'm back. We're back.
I'm going to assume that everything's fine. We'll just proceed.
We can't see both of you at the same time.
Can't see. Speaker. No.
Try leaving and coming back. Should I try
We
try
can't
leaving and coming back? Believe me, I'm going to count on them to know how to do it. So what?
Or can you still?
Who are you seeing? You're seeing Sally or me? Tell us.
Yeah, everybody in the chat. Who can you see and can you hear both of us?
We see whoever's talking. Oh, that's okay. You're just toggling back and forth.
Okay. Huh.
But what if we both talk at the same time? It messes it up. Yep, it messes it up.
Yeah.
Everyone, a little yes. Okay, that was kind of the person that said that. I'm going to also say this about Sally. She looks like Vivian Leigh in Gone with the Wind. A high compliment.
Thank you. Well, okay. If you can, I can hear and see you, Holly and Sally. Okay, everybody, here's what we're gonna do. This is my first time recording and hosting in a webinar version. The recording of this might not be perfect, but if you can hear both of us,
Yeah.
I don't know how to fix this problem.
Yeah, and
But
believe me, I'm
I
the
can
last.
still see Holly. So we're gonna proceed. I hope that's okay. Because we've still got just over half an hour to chat about this book, and I want to make the most of it. But I can't remember where we were, so I'm going to launch into a new question, if that's okay.
Good idea.
Okay.
Yes, it's very easy for me to go off track. You may have
So
noticed that.
there are a lot of characters in this book. Some of them we get to hear from more than others, but there's quite a large cast of characters, and you blend them to, like, you tie everybody together in a really impressive way. Everybody's story links up. How did you
Interrupt you to say this? Really? There's a lot of characters? I don't think so. Yeah, I'm like,
not a ton, okay, not a ton of characters, but enough characters that you actually do get to hear from their point of view.
yes.
And and even though they're all separate people, they're all quite, they are all tied together by the end, at least. Everybody.
Well, I do tell my story
Mhm.
in different points of view. Just like I told that story about the alligator biting me in the face. I told my side, then I told his side. And in the book, I tell many sides. So there's one point where I'm in the point of view of a bear because I want to know what the bear is thinking at that point. I'm in the point of view of the elephant, and there's more than one elephant, because that's really what storytelling is. Who's the hero? Who's the villain? Whose story is it? Or does every story belong to everybody who's part of that story? Does everybody have a legitimate point of view of what happened or what is happening and how it affects them? Okay. Obviously, I think the answer is the second answer. So I shift points of view. So Scylla is the girl, I'm in her point of view. Matteo is a boy in her class, I'm in his point of view. Gio is an older man, I'm in his point of view. Scylla's dad is in the book. You know, I try to get some perspective on him. There's a circus owner, a small town circus owner. I try to see what his story is. And I do that. So when you're reading it, I go and then I go on to the next one. And then I just saw someone wrote, I really liked Scylla. I don't know who you are, but I really like you for saying that. Because you don't know when you write a book, you don't know what people will respond to. You're not sure when you're doing it, what will be the thing that whose story they find the most interesting, the story they want to follow. So you just have to hope for the best.
Well, I just loved it. I was revisiting it to refresh my memory this morning, and it was really interesting to read it through for a second time and sort of know where everybody ended up when you first met them in the story, if that makes sense. It was just as good, if not better, the second time through.
Thank you. And point out at the beginning before we started this that you're the person who picked the book. So what do you say? I'm pretty excited about that.
Well, I just loved it. And yeah, it's a tearjerker. It's a very emotional story. It's a beautiful story. It's I certainly teared up more than once, but it's also ultimately a very uplifting story as well. I think well, just being able.
I think it's important that no matter what happens to us, no matter where we are, no matter what happens with pain and grief, and certainly in a book like Counting by Sevens, that's really what I'm trying to say, is that we are able to move on. That's what makes us human, that we are able to confront adversity, not be afraid of it, and get through it. So I want my books to have a lot of hope. And because I'm relentlessly, this past 4 years, okay, that was a struggle with my hope, but I'm very hopeful right now. And I'm feeling, especially coming out of COVID, I had a vaccine, just had my second vaccine, which is amazing. I got a vaccine for my mom, who's going to be 92. We went to Dodger Stadium, which is a huge baseball stadium. We stayed in our car. She got hers before mine because of her age. And we're there 4 hours in the car, inching forward. Okay, I'm going to say this. We both had on adult diapers. Maybe I shouldn't say that, but there were bathrooms there. There were no bathrooms. I knew we couldn't roll over, you know, so I didn't use mine. Okay. She, you know, I don't want to out her, but she, yes.
You were there for a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was that. But we got through that. We've here in the state of California, 42% of people are vaccinated. That's an amazing statistic.
Fantastic.
So I think we can be hopeful. Next year, school will just be back in session. Now there are vaccines for people 16 plus. Soon they're going to be 12 to 16. So
there's always hope. There's always hope.
Always hope. There's always hope. Be the hope. You know what I mean? Like, be it, embrace it.
Well, I have one more question. Well, I have lots more questions, but I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to turn to the Q&A and ask a few from our lovely attendees with us. if there's any time left at the end, I might ask a few more. But yeah, if you've asked a question, I will get to those in just a second. April is World Autism Month.
Yes.
And Mateo is autistic in the book, and he was one of my absolute favorite characters. I loved what he brought out in Sila. I loved just his point of view. How did Mateo come to be?
Well, the first thing everybody should know is that when I write a book, I have people help me to make sure that I'm not doing something that is inauthentic. Mm-hmm. So I have readers that they are sensitivity readers. So I had a woman, she's on the spectrum. She's quite accomplished, very interesting woman. And she read drafts of the book to tell me, okay, this is not necessarily how somebody on the spectrum in the way that Mateo is would react. And I was so grateful for that, because that is not my condition, even though I know many children, and some of my close friends have children that are on the spectrum. So I have spent a lot of time with those young people, but I had her help. And I also had somebody who was because they're Turkish people in it, Turkish Americans. Mm-hmm. I had a Turkish reader look at it to see if I was being sensitive to those issues. Mateo is one of my favorite characters, because Mateo, in most stories, the character in the beginning of the story has gone on a journey and is changed in the end. By the time the story is over, they have changed fundamentally. And the thing about Mateo is that he has experienced a close friendship. So he has some additions to his life, but there's not a way he's going to change. There's not, Mateo is Mateo. And the people who change are the people around him, the people who judge him in different ways, the people who understand his differences. And that, when I say the book is fundamentally about friendship, that's what it's about. It's about that we don't want everyone to be just like us. We don't want every family to be just like us. That's not possible anyway, but we have to accept that people are not the same, and we have to embrace that. So really part of the message of the book is delivered through Mateo, which is a way of saying, I'm here. Now, he really connects to animals, and he loves animals, and maybe because animals don't talk back the way people do. Animals don't judge you. Mm-hmm. Animals only judge how you treat them. And so that's another thing that the book is about. Acceptance.
Yeah. Well, he was fantastic. And then let's get to the Q&A, because we've got some great questions here. Hazel is asking, what helped you the most while writing The Elephant in the Room? You can interpret that however you like, whether it's your process or research or...
I'm going to tell you what helped me. Perseverance. Not
perseverance. There you go.
I started 5 years ago, and the story that I initially started to tell changed. I love Jane Goodall. So I have these heroes, and Jane Goodall, I'm a member of the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences. They give out the Oscars. So they have events during the year, and Jane Goodall was in a documentary a few years ago, and she was speaking. So I went to hear her speak. I sat right in the front. I wanted to be as close to Jane Goodall as I could. And afterwards they said, well, before it started, they said, Jane Goodall, after she speaks, is going to get up. She was being interviewed, and then she's going to leave the stage. And we beg you, don't come rushing down to talk to her. Don't come rushing down to get your picture with her. Let her be. Okay, she finishes. Everyone's clapping. Everyone rushes down. Okay?
Of course.
Don't listen to anything anyone can say. But and I tried not to rush down, but I was just in awe of her study in Tanzania, which started in 1960. So imagine that, we're in 2021. She has the longest ongoing study of animals in the history of scientific study of animals. And so there's so much we can learn from looking at how animals live their lives. Now, there are 5 or 6 animal groups that live in family groups. So dolphins, chimpanzees, lions, elephants. These are all highly, highly sophisticated networks of animals. They mourn the loss when one of the animals dies. They have social structure. And so we can look at that and then look at our own. So there's so much we can learn from that. Like, how are we doing it? They're doing it. We're all connected. We're all living things, trying to get along on this planet. And I think that elephants are right now, they are endangered in many ways. They need a lot of land to exist. They have no natural predators except for man. And that makes them very vulnerable. So to man, not to anyone else. I just saw on the thing, because I can see little things pop up, and but I'm talking, so I don't really look at it very much. But someone said, I have 3. And for a second I was thinking, I wonder if there's someone that has 3 elephants. Interesting. Okay, I'm thinking she has 3 something else. Books, I don't know. Okay. Next.
Next, we have we've got a few different questions from Christine Malloy. So why did you choose an elephant to be the main?
Well, because
the main animal and not another animal.
Because of working on a movie where I was able to look at so much footage of elephants, because I've spent time with an elephant. I know that sounds crazy, but I have, and because there is a majesty to them. They don't really want to be ridden. There are many things we do without. They don't really want to be in a circus and put their paw, their foot up and make their trunk go and lift it. That's not that interesting to them. That's how we've perceived them. But even in zoos, which it's problematic for elephants to be in zoos, but there are many zoos now that have made areas for elephants that are not what they used to be, where they have much more space. And just go someplace and watch an elephant and you'll be convinced. That's all I have to say. You'll be convinced.
Actually, that was a question that I wanted to ask. There's 2 different animal rescues that you mentioned in the book, one for bears and one for elephants. Are those real places, or are those
they're unreal things? So what happened when they started to make laws which prohibited in the United States, it prohibited circuses from putting elephants, these huge majestic animals, into trucks and just driving them around from place to place. That's no longer legal. And so the big circuses retired their elephants, and they made a place in Florida and a place in Arizona. So that's true. And then there are many, many different rescue agencies and people and places. And it's interesting how in a rescue community, there are people who rescue German Shepherds, and then there are people who rescue dachshunds. There are people who seem to narrow in on this thing that you have a connection to. If you're someone like me, I love everything except for maybe the alligators and crocodiles, and also the snakes. I'm not a huge snake person. So I know a lot about that about rescue communities and how important they are. It's really interesting in COVID times that the animal shelters, like in Los Angeles, is the first time that we have very few pets able to be adopted.
That's the same where I am.
It's really amazing. So I tell people that we'll look back on this time and we're going to say there's certain things we miss. I know that sounds nuts, but we will. There'll be a way that we slowed down. Maybe we read more. Maybe we spent more time with our parents. Maybe we did art more. Maybe we started cooking. Maybe we learned to play an instrument. There will be things that we did because our whole life changed. Mm-hmm. And one of the major things people did is they went to a shelter and they got a pet that needs saving. We all need saving. So I'm really glad that my 2 crazy dogs aren't in here right now, because sometimes they sort of know that I'm on Zoom. So they go through the house and they start barking, and in a very, very insane way. But it's possible that my husband is downstairs and that he has them, in his office, and he's trying to keep them from doing that.
Allison S is asking, what drew you to middle grade writing? And do you have any advice for would-be authors?
Well, here's my number one advice for would-be authors, which is to just write. Like, you have to write. And you guys, you should start writing now. If you think it's possible you might be a writer. But it's never, my first book wasn't published till I was 50. That's so crazy. My first book was, it's called I'll Be There. It was published by Little Brown. But I had been writing television and film. So it's not like it was the first thing, but it's my first book. And I'm proud of that book. But I think what you need to do to be a writer is you're a reader. You need to read a lot, and then you need to do it. Even if it's, you have a journal and you write for 10 minutes a day. If it's, well, I wrote a book, and I wrote this with Meg Wolitzer, and Meg Wolitzer wrote The Interesting Female Persuasion. She's really an adult author, and we met at the book festival, the book fair, and it was this crazy thing. We met each other, and we realized we were standing in line. We had to stand up on a stage, and we realized that we are writers, and we're the same age. Well, we're 9 months different in age. We went to similar colleges. So I went to a school called Wellesley, which is a women's college, and to Dartmouth. She went to Smith, which is a women's college, and to Brown. We are both married to men who are writers. We both have 2 sons. It just went on and on. We both have the rescue dogs. We even found out that we both drink the same weird green tea, which nobody met anyone who
living parallel lives.
Yeah. At one point I said, wait, what's going on? You're from outer space and you've been sent here. But we're also so different. So even though we do the same thing, we've always done the same thing. We have a similar lifestyles because we both are married to writers, and yet we're very different. So I live in Southern California. I live a block from the beach. My sons are surfers. They grew up walking to the end of my street and surfing and skimboarding. Of course, I drive a car. I have a bicycle. I hike in the mountains as often as I can. Meg lives, and I can say all this because she's not here. Meg lives on the Upper West Side of New York City, and she doesn't drive a car. And she lives in an apartment with her husband. She has a very urban life.
Yeah.
She goes to the ballet and to the opera, and I go and walk up the fire trail to the picnic table. We just have this very different life. And so she said, we should write a book together. And I go, well, how exactly are we supposed to do that? How do you write a book with someone? What would that even be? And she said, I don't know. I feel like we should do it. We should write a book together. So I came into the kitchen. I'm in my kitchen right now. I came into the kitchen one day, and my husband was sitting right back there, and he's reading the paper. And I say to him, Meg says we should write a book together. I don't know how. And he looks up from this newspaper and he says, we'll start by emailing her. Now, he meant email locations, characters, ideas for story, email her really setups. And I thought he meant, pick a character and email her. So I made up a character. The greatest thing about this book, from my point of view, is that it's entirely told in emails and letters. It's an epistle novel. The whole novel is people writing each other or texting each other. And the very first email I wrote her, the subject was, you don't know me. You don't know that I'm writing you anyway. This could go into your spam. Maybe you're the kind of person who checks the spam. I don't. Well, so I sent her this email, and I remember I told you that there's character and character has problems. So the character in this, her father was going to send her to summer camp. She didn't want to go. And I sent it to Meg, and all of a sudden my phone rings, and it's Meg, and she goes, what are you doing? What are you doing? Why? What do you mean you don't know me? Who do you mean? Who knows? And I go, no, we're not going to. You just pick a character and you answer me. Well, my character lives in Venice, California. Hers lives in New York on the Upper East Side. We ended up rewriting stuff. So you can't really say that one of us is one character and one is the other. You can't say that. But of course, yeah, you can. But like that, I mean, she's like, we're both of them. Well, yeah, kind of. Anyway, I think it's a great exercise to pick a friend. This is kind of like doing improv. This is how you do when you're acting. You don't want to stop, because that's how we did the book. Meg would call and say, okay, let's get on the phone and talk about the next thing. I'd go, no. You just send me an email and I'll try to deal with it. And she's like, that's no way to do it. But that's what improv does. You keep asking questions, you don't stop. So we improved a book. So what I say to kids is, pick a friend, pick an enemy, pick a little brother, pick anyone, pick a cousin, make a character, maybe a character who's someone like you, maybe someone who's not like you, send them an email and pose a problem, and then tell them you want them to answer. And that's how you can end up with a book. We sold this book to Disney Plus. They're making a movie out of it.
Oh, that's great. I hadn't heard that. Oh, congratulations. That's
announced it. So, and we wrote the screenplay. We're super excited about that. And then Counting by Sevens, I have a great director who's supposed to be doing that. And I wrote this book called Apple Blossom the Possum. And I wrote that because I won the E.B. White Honor Award with Counting by Sevens. And it got really very attached to E.B. White and a story told from the point of view really entirely of the animals. And so my dog went into the yard. I thought he killed the world's biggest rat. And when he brought the world's biggest rat into the house, and my husband and I are yelling, the world's biggest rat, we went to get a plastic bag and we went to get tongs. We're going to throw away the world's biggest rat. We came back, dude was gone. He was not the world's biggest rat. Turned out he was a possum.
Oh,
so the
that's
next
what they
day,
do. They play dead.
They play dead. So the next day, my husband drew that picture, and he did all. This is my husband. He did all the pictures in my book. He's a TV writer, but he's really a great artist. So he did that, and we wrote a story about a group of possums. And Dustin Hoffman, who's a fantastic actor, he read the audiobook, so I love the audiobook. Anyway, I think that when I first started writing that book, when the possum got up and ran away, I turned to my husband and that was the greatest actor of the animal world. Is really playing dead. And that's the main idea of the book. The main idea of the book is possums are the greatest actors of the animal world.
I love it.
And they have to learn to act. So actually, there's many things that I have learned about acting, being a director. I just put them all in here, gave them all to the possums.
That's just so fun. I was just going to ask you something and it's gone, but it'll come back. And in the meantime, I'll ask somebody else's question. Scarlett is asking, what are some of your favorite things to do when you're not writing?
Well, writing all the time. I write 7 days a week. Well, I love to be in nature. I take a walk almost every day into this, it's called Will Rogers State Park. I live in Santa Monica, but there's a big state park, the largest, I think it's the largest state park in the United States that's surrounded by cities. And I've been up there and seen a mountain lion. I did everything wrong. When I saw him. Like I saw him and he went really loud, very loud. And I was with a friend, and really what you're supposed to do is just stand there and then hold your hands up over your head. And instead, I ran. Not supposed to do. It turns you into like a impala. It turns you into prey, and then they will want to run after you and take you down. Fortunately, that didn't happen. But so I go up there. I don't go anymore right as the sun has gone down, because what I learned from that is that's when the coyotes come out. That's when, so it's really there. At that point, I'm going to turn it all over to them. It's not my place at that point. So I like to walk. I like to cook. I've got kids. I don't know. I'm always busy.
Yeah.
All right. I think we're getting close to the end. Are we not?
We are. We're at 3:51. So we are wrapping things up in just a few minutes. But this has been fantastic. What I was going to say is, by the way, you're probably the 50th author that I've spoken to, and no one has ever given that writing advice. And I really like that writing exercise. Just pick a problem, send an email. That's such great advice. I really, really like that. Any aspiring writer.
You can do that if you're writing an adult book. Pick
Yeah.
a problem, address the problem. Listen, drama storytelling is conflict.
Yes.
So you don't have a story when there are two people who are, hey, how are you? I'm good. How are you? I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm good. How's it going? It's good. That's not, it has to be a problem. There has to be a reason. So that's why, as a writing exercise, picking somebody, a friend or someone maybe you don't even know that well, and posing something that could be a story, and then looking at every story that way, whether it's the Wizard of Oz and they come to take away your dog. Toto's going to be taken away. Turns out there's a storm. She shouldn't be out there. There's a problem. You need a problem, so that's why telling a story through email or I just heard one of the dogs come in.
Rattling around in there.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, well, that is a great place to end this. Thank you so much for everyone who is watching. If The Elephant in the Room is the first of Holly's books that you've read, she has several others, as you have heard in this chat. So you can get them at your bookstore, you can get them at your library, but she's great. Holly, thank you so much for spending your afternoon with us. This was such a pleasure.
I just want to say one more time.
Yes.
You guys are all incredibly lucky to have families or people that care about books in your life that signed you up to be an OwlCrate Jr. I'd like to time travel back and say to my parents or my grandma or somebody who would do it, please sign me up for this thing. I want to get it once a month. And my book, I'm friends with Catherine Applegate, and the one and only Ivan is in the box. It's a great book. The fact that you get more than one book, but there's a similar theme. We did a panel together. We were keynote speakers, and we're good friends. So that means a lot to me too, that the companion book was,
they were a very good pair together.
Yeah. And that's, and it's very well done. So anyway, I want to close by saying thank you to readers. Thank you to OwlCrate Jr. And thank you for coming today to listen to us talk.
Yes. Thank you all so much. Enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are, and we'll see you next month. Bye, everybody.
Bye.